attendees will roll in shortly, but for the sake of time, I think we're going to go ahead and officially call this meeting to order. So welcome everyone, good evening. Looks like our first order of business will be the review and approval of minutes. Councilman Dayhoff, take it away.
Welcome to our monthly Recreation and Parks Advisory Board meeting. It's great to see everyone. Chair Laird sent out the minutes earlier. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any corrections? And if not, may I have a motion for approval?
One small correction, the very last sentence under 2021 event updates, just change departments to department.
Okay.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as written, except for airing addition.
Motion's been made by Advisory Board Member Wogman to accept the minutes. Do I have a second, please?
Happy to second it.
Josh has seconded. Mr. Ambrose has seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dayhoff. Our next agenda item, once again, the mission and vision statement. So I just wanted to quickly touch on this and see if we could come to a consensus and finalize the mission statement based on the previous conversations that we've had. I know Jennifer is working with, Ms. Yang is working with Ms. Gruber in her department to come up with a vision statement that we can also adopt, which is great. So looking forward to hearing about that as you all progress through that. But I know as written in the minutes, there was a little bit of an adjustment made to the initial mission statement that was presented by Mr. Ambrose and Ms. Yang at the last meeting. So wondering if we want to approve it as written in the minutes or if there are any final adjustments that we would like to make. I know there was also another version thrown out where the mission statement ended with engage in their community through recreation and parks activities, and the way it's written in the minutes is through associated activities. I don't know that either one makes a big difference, but if you all have any comments or anybody would like to respond in any way.
I'm fine either way, whatever the board feels is the correct response.
Ms. Yang, looks like you were unmuting.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, I think the word is just changed just to make it a little more generic in terms of activities, because it may not necessarily be through Rex and Park type of activities, just whatever activities, whatever. So it was meant to be a little bit less constrained, but I think that the spirit, the essence is still the same.
So are we good to go then with it as written? I suppose we should, I should call for a motion to approve it as written if we'll maintain that level of formality at this point.
Did you move to, did you remove it? Then I second it. If you have not, then I say I move to approve it.
Perfect. Motion by Ms. Yang. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All right, second by Mr. Wagman, and we will go ahead and move forward with the mission statement as it was written in the meeting minutes from our February 9th meeting. I think it's great. I really appreciate the work that both you and Mr. Ambrose did on that. And I think really, you know, we could wordsmith that 100 different ways, but I think it really does capture the essence of what this board is looking to do in terms of support for the department and how we'll move through the activities of the board.
And I just wanted to add that I'm working with Abby and her staff, not just to come up with a vision statement, but they also want to refresh their mission statement and actually establish some goals. I don't think they have any that are current. So it's not just a vision statement exercise. It's actually going to be a full-blown strategic plan exercise, so to speak. So we're already in progress. That's already in flight right now. So
if you have a deeper report on that or anything you'd like to share, I was about to ask you if you had anything on that, any updates. So if there's anything more that you want to share, feel free.
Yeah, we are actually going to be conducting in a couple of weeks an all afternoon facilitated strategy session. So right now the staff has a questionnaire, basically similar to what the board received to do this exercise for us, but with a few more questions on it to kind of gauge people's initial thoughts and everything. So that's already in their inboxes. It went out on Friday. They have about a week to submit their responses. I will digest them and package them. They are anonymous. So hopefully people will be pretty open and frank about it. And then we will meet and discuss and kind of walk through vision, mission, walk through an organizational analysis, a very light version of a SWOT analysis, and discuss what they are not, what the department is or is not, what the department likes, what they do not like. If they could shed anything, what would it be and why? And so we're not just talking about what they do, but also what they don't want to do or shouldn't be doing, or those elements too. Like that'd be at the end of March. And then with the goal of having everything kind of packaged and ready to go by the end of April, so to speak. So yeah, I'm excited about working with them on this initiative.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that report, but then also for the work that you're doing with the department. I think that's really great that they'll have that opportunity to update all of those items and kind of have those guiding words as they move forward as well in their efforts in the city. So if that's all there and we have no further comment about mission and vision work right now, we'll move on. It looks like we have one of our guests who has joined us, Mr. Larry Wood. Welcome. We will be getting to pickleball very shortly. So I just wanted to make sure we acknowledged your presence and say hello to you and welcome you to our meeting this evening. The next item is a review of the Wakefield Valley public input meeting, the third meeting that we had. That was just last week, seems like just yesterday almost. So I will turn it over to Ms. Gruber. It was another wonderful meeting. Her staff again did a great job, as did the consultants, Pannoni and Associates. So I will let her tell us a little bit more about what happened there. Ms. Gruber.
Thank you so much. So our public comment period is open until close of business tomorrow. So I don't have any actual tabulated data at this point in time, simply because we're still receiving a tremendous amount of input. I did start to tabulate the input that we received at the in-person session, but I don't have anything in a reportable form at this point in time. I can go over some of the highlights of the meeting and just some of the themes of the feedback that we are receiving, so I can speak in general terms about that. So it was the third and final meeting last Wednesday evening at the Arts Council. We had adjusted the plan based upon the feedback associated with the second public input meeting, and we increased our concentration on habitat restoration, stream bank restoration, and some native plantings. I actually was in touch with the county today, and they are on board and excited to start helping us with our reforestation efforts. And that's something that we can certainly move ahead with, because there will be funding available if we work in partnership with them. And we all know how long it takes trees to grow. So probably the sooner the better that we can begin some of those efforts and establishing some stands of trees and native plants. So that's something that as soon as we have endorsement of the plan, we can begin some of those corrective actions for habitat. We were actually in the process of starting that long ago when the Wakefield Valley Task Force was formed, and any plantings were halted because of the uncertainty of the future of the property at that point in time. So we have made those connections again. That's moving ahead productively. The article that came out in the paper prior to the meeting did, I think, maybe create some issues for us. It sort of reintroduced this idea that perhaps we could have a golf course there again. So we had worked very hard to bring the public along with us with the idea that this was going to be a natural park space, and then that idea was introduced again. So a lot of our email that we're receiving right now is kind of back to square one, with people saying, I don't know why you wouldn't turn it back into a golf course. So we're responding appropriately, and certainly trying to reinforce the positive aspects that will be brought to this community through the establishment of a well-planned park and recreation resource. So I will have definitely more concrete information and some, I guess, sort of analyzed material to report back in with after our public comment period closes, and we meet up with a consultant to sort of digest some of the priority rankings that we received through email and in person and on Padlet at the meeting last Wednesday night. And that concludes my overview, unless there are questions.
So Abby, I don't have a question. I just kind of wanted to, I guess, clarify with everyone here that the article that showed up in the paper, I don't want to say magically showed up in the paper, but it kind of magically showed up in the paper. No one knew of that opportunity or that idea or that thought until literally probably the afternoon of the day before it was in the paper, when the writer called several of us on the council to inform us that there was this thought and what our response was to it. So that idea never was formally presented to anyone prior to us, being where we are today. So I just kind of wanted everyone to know that I kind of got the impression from the article that it was the thought of the council that we knew something about this idea about turning it to a conference center and a golf course, and we rejected the idea. So I just kind of wanted everyone to know that that really wasn't the case. It was just an article that popped up in the paper.
Yeah, and if I can weigh in with just a quick editorial comment for the record. And that is that I am not anti-golf course, but I will just gently note that they have a very heavy environmental price tag in terms of water and chemicals and all of the things, and that the plans so far have been very multi-generational and inclusive of everyone, and that is by default not what a golf course is. And so if there is as a result of this new conversation, any kind of public comment is needed in support of the direction that we were heading earlier, I am happy to craft said commentary at any point if it would be helpful to the conversation.
Yeah, to follow up with Josh, in addition to all that, a golf course does take millions and millions of dollars, and that golf course out there would have to be rehabbed from start to finish and take up the pipes and redo everything. And you're talking probably a $30 million project, maybe at the minimal. So it's not in the budget. It's not. And again, there's also a water supply issue. I don't know about you, but most golf courses I see get watered and sprinkled every single evening. We do not have water to sprinkle a golf course every single evening for the city of Westminster. So that is not going to even be a consideration. And Josh is right. The idea is that the entire property is to be used for everyone, not only in the city of Westminster, but for Carroll County. And not everyone plays golf. So that's kind of the thought at the moment. So I just kind of wanted everyone to kind of know a little bit of the background or the lack of background to that article and kind of where that came from, if anybody had any questions or thoughts. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
I actually had a question for Abby. Are you noticing any interest, let's say more concentrated interest around the people that are immediately surrounding that particular piece of property? I know people myself that are right up against the back of that golf course, and they've brought up some concerns of their own. But I'm just wondering if you're noticing that most of the interest is coming from those particular types of people, or if they're just scattered everywhere.
We do see some trends with the feedback that is coming in through email, that there are certainly people who respond in similar manners that are likely neighbors to the golf course. So yes, we're seeing that. And I think the consistent theme and what everyone needs to remember, and I've tried to be very direct in my messaging, is again, this is just a framework. This is a guide for us to say, these are the opportunities that Wakefield presents to us. These are the places where it's most appropriate to put XYZ facilities. And so, we've tried to pick those items that are most appropriate and the least offensive, and that will serve the greatest good. But it doesn't mean that as soon as this plan is finalized and endorsed, that bulldozers roll in tomorrow and start construction. This is just a guide for us. So 20 years from now, somebody's not sitting there saying to themselves, well, this would have been a great place for a band shell. I can't believe they put a pavilion here. So we're trying to establish the most appropriate sites for the best possible facility usage. It's not even saying it's going to be built. So that's one of the things that we're trying to really message out to people that are concerned about different aspects of the plan, is that it's not set in stone. It's just us saying that we're not going to put a soccer field in the floodplain so that no one can ever play soccer on it because it's always underwater. This is what a master planning process does. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to communicate very clearly.
Ms. Gruber?
Yes.
If I could reassure Mr. Burrows, I'm on the phone almost every other day with members of the Homeowners Association and a number of members of the environmental community, of which I'm a member. So we've been in close contact with all those folks, trying to coordinate and trying to walk that fine line to make as many folks as possible happy. And I think we're on a really, really good course of action at this point in time. I'm really excited about the future of Wakefield Valley. It's a legacy issue. I think 100 years from now, they're going to study how well we did it. Thank you.
And to piggyback on my previous question, in addition to some concerns that some of the neighboring property owners might have with the property, another concern would be if they're the only ones providing feedback, that could skew the suggestions. So if they're saying, I don't want anything going back there, suddenly you've got 300 comments saying don't put anything in it, and now that's the only feedback you're getting. So I want to make sure that we're engaging the city as a whole, county as a whole, really, and getting feedback from as many people as we can. So that was something else that had occurred to me as well.
Ms. Gruber?
Yes.
I'm getting a broad spectrum of feedback. I have a number of of very close friends who are extremely pro golf, and they're still in touch with me. A number of folks who are upset that we took the ball fields off of the proposed plan. I'm in touch with them. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of the meeting, when I turned my video off, that was somebody with feedback about Wakefield Park. So it's a daily process at this point in time. I think I'm looking forward to us rolling up our sleeves and getting to work, looking for some grants, and I'm excited about the opportunities with the riparian buffers and the succession forestation and maybe some forest banking, and I'm really looking forward to the wide paths. I'm really excited about it all. But we've gotten a broad, I'm getting a very, very broad spectrum of feedback from folks. And most everybody's been, it's been pleasant. It's been a good process.
And I will say, having been to the two that actually took place in person meetings, since the first was unable to happen in person with weather constraints, we have had people, as you mentioned, Aaron, members of that community, neighbors to that golf course, former golf course, future park, who are there, but then also other members of the community who live, in and around and all over the city and the county, and even people from neighboring communities who have come out. And it's been really wonderful to watch Ms. Gruber, field their questions. There's been a help desk, a little information desk at each one of those events where they've been able to come and talk. And then we've also had members of Recreation and Parks around the room, answering questions and engaging with those people who've attended. And I think they've done a really great job of hearing their concerns and being able to respond. And honestly, I don't think Ms. Gruber could have been any more prepared for any of the questions. It was amazing to hear her responses, and they were really well thought out. So I think the process has been really wonderful. And I think, the feedback's been great, but luckily, a lot of those things are things that really have been thought about, obviously with, guidance from our consultants, and then also, the experience of our Recreation and Parks Department, and all involved in this process. So it's been wonderful to watch it happen and to hear the responses. But I think from what I've seen, we've had really great representation from around the community and beyond. So anything else, Ms. Gruber, or anyone else who would like to chime in?
I have one other update, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting news. Part of the grant process that allowed us to endeavor into the master plan also allocated funding to repave the parking lot, because one of the big stipulations with Land Water Conservation Fund money is sustained accessibility. And so one of the things that was threatening sustained accessibility to the site was our continued and degraded state of the parking lot. So our annual roadway paving in the city actually started yesterday, and it looks as if we may be able to piggyback on that contract. And why that's exciting and important, because parking lots, let's face it, aren't really exciting and important. However, it is exciting and important because we will receive better pricing because they've already mobilized. And so I am meeting a representative from CJ Miller out at the park tomorrow to discuss, pardon me, the scope of that project and to move ahead with hopefully getting that accomplished this spring.
Abby, I know this probably was not a topic that maybe I should even ask you this privately, but so I have a question. The status of the very large conference center, I know it's been a discussion amongst a few of us. And the last time I had heard was that one of our team would be going in and looking at it first, determine whether or not we should proceed further and into what direction. Do you know if that has occurred, or whether we're still putting the money in for the next year's budget to kind of do a study? Do you know what direction that's gone, or if anybody has addressed that? Because I hate it to see money spent on a study when really we just need to tear the darn building down. So I was just kind of curious.
So I don't have any updates on that. I did put in a capital funding request to have the building evaluated, so that we have a professional opinion as to whether or not it is a viable structure and could be, recommissioned for community use, or if the most economical solution at this point is to demolish it. So I don't know if, certainly if we have somebody on city staff that's qualified to do that, and we don't have to allocate funding for a professional study, then that's fantastic. But I haven't received any updates in that area to date. So
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome. And I keep saying one more thing. So I do have, Wakefield just kind of leads into many conversations, but I also did want to provide the board with an update that I heard back from our other consulting firm who's doing the historic structure assessment for the Durbin house. And weather pending, they plan to be on site to do field work on March 25th. And they will be there all day from 9 a.m. till approximately 3 p.m. So if anybody is in the neighborhood or wants to stop by and meet that consulting team, they'll be presenting some of the research that they've done on the Durbin family lineage and the actual architectural history of the structure and its evolution. So they'll have some interesting findings to share, and they'll actually be conducting field work in the Durbin house on March 25th. All day, and they'll be doing the walkover of the site as well. So it should be a really interesting day. And if you're ever wondering what the inside of that building looks like, that will be an opportunity that we could possibly allow you to peek inside.
If anybody's interested in that, should we contact you ahead of time?
That would be great. That way I know who we should be looking out for, because we will be out there all day. And again, that is weather pending. So if we don't have any indoor facility to work out there, because there's no electric in the Durbin house. And so it's just really not, if we can't be outside underneath a tent to have like a home base, it won't be a productive working day. So yes, if you're interested in that opportunity, please let me know.
Thank you for that update and for the invitation.
You're welcome.
So moving on, unless anybody has any other questions. Josh, did you have something? Okay, I saw you on mute and I just wanted to make sure we didn't pass you by. The next item that we have on our agenda, excited to revisit this conversation after the conversation from our last meeting, is the Belgrove Square monument update and the idea of perhaps an event of some sort surrounding that. So if you all want to take it away, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's why I unmuted myself, because I knew that was coming up.
Perfect.
My quick summary is that although a concrete consensus was not reached at our last meeting, it seems like a lot of the group wants to move forward with having the actual move of the historic marker happen in May, and some sort of small ceremony around that, but is open to a larger collaborative ceremony next fall, where we kick off some of the installation of additional signage, recognize the gardens that are going to be developed over the summer, and otherwise celebrate the history of the square. That is my analysis of the conversation, but I will turn to my fellow friends and commissioners here with Aaron and Kevin to either elaborate, contradict, or otherwise add context to that conversation.
Josh, I think you were right. My thought was to start something and then do something in May, because it was historic a month. So I thought better than kicking the can down the road, let's start something. And so that was what I was implying to do. But again, if everybody wants to do a grand event and we can wait, I'd be happy.
I think what it boils down to is there was probably a bit of a disconnect between what the HDC was hoping to do and what the Rec and Park Advisory Board was hoping to do. And ultimately, the timing of the monument repair actually was a lot faster than I think any of us anticipated. I think we're looking at getting the monument back at the end of April. And I did not know it was going to happen so quickly. So the chairwoman of the HDC, Ms. McMasters, she commented that May is, as Kevin mentioned, Preservation Month for the city of Westminster, and that the return of the monument it corresponds very closely with that. And there was kind of a feeling of strike while the iron's hot, take advantage of this opportunity, relocate the monument, and make a spectacle of it during the Preservation Month, because that opportunity just kind of presented itself. I don't think that necessarily negates the fact that we could do a larger thing in September for commemorating both monuments, unveiling some more signage, redoing some of the gardens around the Belgrove Square area. I think that's probably where this particular advisory board should focus, is that particular event. And I think we had targeted, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, September timeframe, somewhere in there.
That's my understanding as well.
So I think all that makes sense. I think that was my understanding as well, kind of based on the last conversation. And I think, as Mr. Wagman mentioned, there was some conversation about perhaps foregoing something sooner and just moving it down to the fall event. But with the timing of it, lining up with Preservation Month, it does seem to make sense that we could do something, in conjunction with the HDC, if that makes sense. So with you all kind of who are a part of that as well, perhaps advising us, and if that makes sense, I think I won't speak for the group. I know I would be more than happy to collaborate and be a part of that, to mark that return of the monument.
Go ahead, Josh. I didn't want to talk over you.
Oh, I would just say that, my understanding from Ms. McMasters is that they're planning to kick off this new monument in a month or less. And so with that brief of a time window, I would say we just let this group, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, know when that is, and y'all are invited to show up if that happens. But other than that, I would not, with that short of a time frame, I would personally advocate that we don't try to coordinate anything more significant than that at this point, and instead focus on a greater collaboration in the fall.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I agree. I think also if we do a greater event in the fall, we're going to have less of the COVID restrictions are going to be later. I know the governor just lightened a lot of things as of Friday, but you kind of don't know what's going to happen with that, at least right now. And I think by fall we'll be pretty stable. So I think that'll give us, pretty much a very stable event and something that we can pretty much count on by that time.
Sounds good. Anyone opposed to that plan? No, I think we all seem to be in agreement there. So if that is the case, then we will continue this discussion, table it for now, but continue this discussion about a fall event. And for now, yes, if you all could let us know as you find out what anything sooner might look like. So those of us that are able to and interested can be a part of that or attend, that would be wonderful. So thank you, gentlemen, Aaron, Josh, and Kevin. And thank you for your work with the HDC. That's very important work as well in the city. And I know we're excited to have representation on both sides so that we can continue to find those opportunities to collaborate. That being said, we have a guest with us, and I think as it stands, we're not going to put him on the spotlight and force him into any kind of a fancy presentation, but we're going to let Ms. Gruber kind of talk us through this pickleball court idea that was brought to our attention. And then Mr. Wood, if you have the opportunity, if we have any questions and you can help kind of fill in the gaps, that would be great. So we appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you again and welcome. And Ms. Gruber, if you have an opportunity to, or want to take the opportunity now to kind of fill us all in on what's been going on, that would be great.
So I actually am at some point going to put Larry and John in the hot seat and turn it over to them, but I did want to just introduce the idea. And if you remember back at our, I believe it was our January meeting, when in fact this idea was first discussed at this board as an informal item, where I had received contact information from, I'm not even sure who it was, back in January, with the request to line the other set of tennis courts. And we did have a discussion about it. And at the time it was decided that perhaps it would be best to leave one set of courts lined only for tennis. And since that time, then we've received additional requests to line the other set of tennis courts again. So I did, the way I had first understood the plan, the scope has changed a little bit. And the reason for that is this group, and if I'm misspeaking, Larry and John can correct all this information when I'm done. But I think the idea is that there is a group that through the winter months was playing indoors at the inflatable space in the mall. And there are approximately 40 regular players that want to begin playing outdoors the 1st of April. And so ultimately, if we only have 2 courts lined for pickleball, this can't accommodate this entire avid group of players. And so the appeal is coming back to the board to again say, can we line the other courts? And I believe there was discussion, and Larry and John can fill you in on this particular matter, but of actually being able to line the other set in a manner that we could obtain 3 courts on that side. So then their entire group of 40 people can continue to play together outdoors in City Park. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to our guest this evening. Larry, I believe, is going to present, and John is on standby as well. So Larry, go ahead.
What we're looking for is 4, maybe even 5 courts in order for us to have a group of that size together. Now, John has a group, and they've gotten as many as 28 in theirs, and then I've got a group in the morning that plays, and there's maybe 10 in that group every day. So we're looking for a space that would have several courts, either 3 or on up to 5 as a possibility. It was suggested that we look at King Park or JC Park. I've been to those 2 locations to see how they look and what we could do to accommodate more courts there. At King Court, at King Park, the fenced-in area is not large enough to have any more than just 1 court there. I tried looking at 2 courts there, and the problem is there isn't enough space behind the baseline in order for our better players to want to play there. if we would do something with the basketball court beside it, we could utilize that for 2 more, so that would have a total of 3, but it would involve the expansion of the width of the basketball court by 4 feet or more. 4 feet would be the minimum, but if we could go more, then it would be a better condition. Going to the JC Park, I took a look at it, and it is not large enough. It's even smaller than King Park was, as far as the length of it is concerned. And so even though we could get 3 courts side by side, we couldn't get the fourth through 6 because it isn't wide enough or deep enough on one side. On that one, we only have 4.5 feet behind the baseline, which is not good. So we're back to looking at doing more with Westminster City Park, because you have 4 courts there, and we have enough space. And John and I have gone back and forth on this as to whether or not we really have enough space, but we've decided that yes, 6 foot is a minimal amount of space that we could still play, and put multiple courts on 1 tennis court. We'd like to keep the 2 that are using the tennis nets currently that are lined for pickleball. That seems to work out fine. On the other one, John and I have thought if we could put one of them with just 1 court onto it using the tennis net, and the other one putting 2 courts onto it, that would give us a total of 5 courts and would satisfy the needs of our group. Now, we've got 40 people right now, but we have contact of over 100 people in Carroll County. We have a tournament every fall, and we've been going to North Carroll High School for that tournament. And that tournament has had 150 the second year that it ran. The third year it was only 101. But Bob, any plans to continue to do that tournament? So we're going to be encouraging people to come to Carroll County to play pickleball. It sure would be nice if we could do something with Westminster City Park to accommodate more courts. John, do you have any comment?
No, Larry, I think you said that pretty well. I think the volume will increase with COVID lessening, and we're going in the outdoor space. Once people hear about the lining that is available, I think it'll increase drastically, to be honest with you. Because, there are people reaching out to Anthony and myself about, other opportunities to play. And once that is accommodating for more people, I think it'll be a lot of volume in and out of the city playing pickleball, to be honest with you.
Gentlemen, did you look at Gutterer Park at all? I don't know if that was ever part of your calculus, but it seems to me to be a space that is somewhat underutilized in comparison to our central city park. But I don't even know if there's any infrastructure there that lends itself to your purposes, or if you've had any conversations with Ms. Gruber about what it would look like to add it.
No, we haven't.
Are there tennis courts at Duttera Park? I didn't even know that.
No, there's not.
I don't think so, just basketball.
Okay. Right, okay.
Ms. Gruber, are there any grants? Not that you don't have enough to do in your world. Are there any grants to add another court somewhere? I'm just curious.
Actually, John and I discussed this just briefly, thinking about, the master plan for Wakefield does contemplate 6
Right.
dedicated pickleball courts. So certainly, we would be looking to secure funding to do that at Wakefield. But there are no grant funding opportunities right now that I'm aware of.
A pickleball.
Unless, Larry, you might have some resources. Larry is the ambassador for pickleball for Carroll County. So I don't know if the Pickleball Association has gotten to that point yet. So do you have anything to add?
There is funding available through USA Pickleball, but it is for getting organizations started, and it's only around $1,000. A brand new court would be $30,000.
Okay, never mind.
But we could get us some money for paint. So
Yeah.
Larry, I believe the email that was submitted actually stated that you would be planning to do the lining and cover the cost for the paint. You're basically seeking permission to do so. Is that correct?
we were hoping that the city could have staff to put down the paint, but I would map it out and so they would know where it's to go.
Okay, I do believe that is the partnership that occurred for the lining of the first set of courts. I think it was under direction of
Bob.
I think it was Bob and Roy Libden might have been involved. Yes, I was reaching deep for that name. But anyway, so they were there on site to line it, or to basically lay it out and kind of supervise to make sure that we were interpreting the schematic appropriately. So
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
okay.
Yeah, you're about the 20th court I've laid out.
You have some experience.
Yes.
Good.
So Ms. Gruber,
Yes.
so what's before us is an idea to use to lay out a couple more pickleball courts at the playground.
Correct.
I think that I think that if that's the direction of the board, maybe Madam Chair, we could have a motion in a second and see if we want to recommend that to the Common Council or not.
Sure, I was absolutely about to just want to make sure that there are no other comments
ma'am.
from the members of the board in terms of this proposal. I know there were quite a few comments when we addressed this previously. Mr. Zaluski.
Of course. I know my only concern is that we're going to create some kind of turf war between the tennis and pickleball players. I know we have a large concentration of tennis players in the evening here, since my house backs up right to the tennis courts. I know they are utilized all the way till 10:30 at night. So that's my only concern. I don't want to create what the word verbiage I used of turf wars. So now, Mr. Wood, we have 4 tennis courts at City Park. Are you saying, since obviously pickleball courts have a smaller footprint, we are utilizing 2 courts on one tennis, or 2 pickleball courts on one tennis?
That's our proposal for one of the courts, yes.
So currently
Currently it's 1-to-1 for the first 2.
So currently on I consider the south side of the City Park tennis courts, there are 2 tennis courts, or is that 4 total pickleball courts currently laid out?
No, it's just 2.
Can we put 2 more in there so you have 4 total?
That's where John and I are having a problem.
Well, you have to realize if you do that, you have to bring portable nets to actually play when you
Right.
line 2 courts on one tennis court. So we're trying to give it the best of both worlds. So if we line another tennis court, so you can play with the net that's existing, so your casual pickleball player can just play and not bring a net. And the people that are dedicated, we're going to bring nets so we can expand our play space. So we're trying to leverage both sides of it so everybody can play and also maximize how many people can play. So, and as far as the tennis folks are concerned, I mean, once we get a rhythm of, we're there, we see who's there, we can pick other nights. It's flexible. It's not like we're hardcore. It needs to be Thursday, Tuesday nights, right? So, I mean, it's a combined community space, and we have to figure it out. That's all.
It's not just a pickleball tennis court issue across any area. It's lacrosse, soccer, baseball.
Oh,
everybody
absolutely.
has issues with
Right, absolutely.
with real estate and accommodating sporting. But that was just I was just trying to throw it out there. I didn't know how we could lay it out, utilize that farther court just for pickleball and the other one just for tennis.
And talking to the pickleball community folks from Howard County, Montgomery County, whenever they're using municipal spaces, they're lining 2 per tennis court, and people must bring nets because the amount of people that are playing to accommodate, that's the only way they can do it.
Ms. Gruber, have we done any kind of study? We have a little bit of an anecdote here that those spaces are heavily in use already by tennis players. And I don't mean to discount that anecdote, but do we have any kind of quantitative data about that?
We do not. Our courts aren't reservable spaces unless it's a planned activity. For instance, Carroll County Recreation and Parks in the past has reserved our tennis court facility to teach tennis lessons on. So it really is casual use. I just kind of scooted my desk chair back because I can see the courts from my office window, and the lights are on. However, it doesn't appear there's any players out there this evening. So, that's really the only way is for us just to sort of be paying attention to who's out there and when. One of the things with pickleball that is comforting from a facility usage standpoint and a maximization of facilities is that it seems to me, and again, Larry and John can jump in if I'm wrong, that they're playing at scheduled times. So certainly my bigger concern isn't necessarily over, a conflict between tennis players and pickleball players and use. I think that could be worked out. That could certainly be worked out between the two groups, or if it got down to it, it could be managed through our department through facility reservations and not like anything complicated, just like Tuesday and Thursday nights is pickleball and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's open for tennis. And we could post signs that sort of said or reinforce those things and the dates of which that play would occur. So for instance, pickleball said they want to start their outdoor season on April 1st. So we would be able to post signs that would say beginning April 1st, there's scheduled pickleball play on these courts these days of the week at these times. So there's always ways to manage around facility conflict. I guess my bigger concern is, does the addition of lines on the tennis court itself affect the tennis player's experience? So I think, that's probably a question that would need to be answered. And I don't know the answer to that. I am a tennis player, but not a serious tennis player. So I wouldn't care what was painted on the ground. All I care about is getting the ball back over the net. So.
Yeah, I guess my editorial comment here is just simply that if demand actually merits it, I would not want these players or ourselves to be stymied by a $30,000 price tag for creating a new court. I would rather work together with them and think about how we could fundraise or otherwise lower the cost of that installation, and instead get ambitious about improving our facilities rather than try to double negotiate our existing spaces. And I will also note that if we're throwing CJ Miller a big fat check for paving Wakefield Valley, maybe they could donate, you know, a little bit of paving for a new space. Slightly tongue in cheek on that one, but just throwing it out there that there may be some creative ways that if we ascertain that there is actually enough demand for heavy usage of these pickleball courts, I would rather work together to think about, you know, how we could bring it to Gutterer Park or another place where is underutilized.
What was the comment about King Park? It wasn't room for two, but room for one. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
So we could actually line the one at King Park, correct?
No,
No, we
The-
can't.
the reason is you're only giving us one court there, and we would not want to be at King Park, JC Park, and City Park for our group, because we like to play with each other. And so
Oh,
you'd be confined to only the few people that are at King Park to play against. If we're all together, then
Okay.
everybody gets to play with everybody.
Okay, so this is something that usually is 2, 4, 6. It's not just 2 players. It's more like 6 or 8 together, and you all everybody plays each other like.
Right.
Okay.
And
Correct.
we're talking 10 to 20 players
Oh,
all playing
okay.
together.
Oh, absolutely.
Now I get it. All right.
Larry and John, I have a question. Were you asking to do the other 2 courts or just line one of the 2 tennis courts at City Park?
We're asking to line what we want the 2 courts that are already lined, and on the other 2 courts, we want one on one of the tennis courts and 2 on the other tennis court. Now,
I actually have the satellite image pulled up on my computer. Can I share my screen just so we can get a little bit more context?
Oh, let me see. I'm never good at this.
Either way, I think I understand what Larry's saying, and he's trying to get 2 pickleball courts onto 1 tennis court.
Right. So that the net would separate the 2 courts, right? So that would be the back of both courts.
Okay. Has there been any, I don't know, that doesn't really work. Okay, do we know what the status, like, do the tennis nets and the supports, are they removable or are they cemented into the ground? They're done, they're in there for good? Okay.
Yeah, you would actually want to keep them there because it stops the ball from running into the other court. So it's actually good to have the net in between the courts.
Well, what I was thinking is if the nets can be removable, you could fit additional courts perpendicular. You remove the supports and then you bring portable nets. That was going to be my suggestion. But if those supports are cemented to the ground, that doesn't.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Well, Larry and John, I was only asking, I know the 1 court, the 2 courts are already lined. The 2 that are not lined on the other side, are you asking for both courts to be lined or take 1 court and have it lined? So meaning 1 court would never have lines other than for tennis. Was my question.
I think it sounds
No,
like they're planning to do lines on both of the remaining courts.
Correct.
So one of the courts will only be used as a single pickleball and the other court will be split and used as a double to essentially give them an extra court. So instead of just having 4 courts, they'll have 5 total.
Correct.
Okay, well, I was the one talking last time. I was a high school tennis coach for 25 years, so I would be willing to do one other court, but I think we asked for a tennis. I would rather, my thought would be leave one court alone for tennis, period. And I understand, I think 30,000 for a court to be done is cheap. They are more like 50, 75,000 because you then had to create more of the surface. 30 would be for repaving an existing court, in my opinion.
Are you familiar with the way it's set up at Deer Park? Deer Park is blue surface, and they have a dark blue line for the tennis players. For the pickleball players, they have a light blue line, so you barely can see it. But pickleball players know that that's their line and play on that. So the light blue does not interfere with people who are playing tennis. And if we would do something like that, then our lines won't bother the tennis players.
And that's a USTPA approved way to do it. I've played at multiple facilities and they usually match the lines with the court, so it's not as visible, but they're still there. So that's a way around that as well. So they would be light green lines technically.
So for those of you who are more avid tennis players than myself, I would say I'm right there in line with Miss Gruber. I enjoy tennis, but I don't know that I'm at the level to really be able to make a comment about what might affect my play. Is the concern more about scheduling conflicts and back to, you know, the kind of the turf war idea, or about the lines themselves?
I feel like it's probably potentially both. I mean, the timing issue, I think that's something that's going to be, if it can't be worked out organically, it might have to be addressed, you know, in a solution that Anne had proposed previously, where, you know, certain days for one sport, another days for another. But the lines, I am looking at the Deer Park courts, and that, I mean, you can barely see the pickleball lines from the satellite image. It's pretty,
Right.
they're pretty faint. But
Correct.
that's actually pretty brilliant. I hadn't even considered a solution like that. I really think that's probably a way to solve the concern that Steve had presented in terms of, you know, the tennis court or avid tennis players being distracted by the lines on the court. They still get their solid, clear, you know, clearly visible lines. Pickleball players who want to play on the same court understand where their lines are, and they know that, okay, this faint green line that I know is here for me. I can utilize the same court in that way. I think that's a really great solution. That's my only comment there. Do we know, does anybody on the panel, on the board, know of any avid tennis players that play regularly at City Park or any of the other parks within Westminster? I think that would be probably the prime source of information for something like this proposal, is if we can get some feedback from some tennis players in the area to say, what would be your objection if we were to do this? If they were to come up with some serious concerns, because obviously no one on this panel is like an avid tennis player and really into the sport to the point where they're going to raise a concern that we're even going to consider. So I think we need to go beyond our perspective to someone who is more serious about playing tennis and figure out what their particular perspective might be.
Abby, are there any tennis groups that you are aware of that have been in contact with you on a regular basis that you could call and ask their thoughts?
There are not organized tennis groups like there are organized pickleball groups. There is at least one individual that I have contact with, and I could certainly ask her opinion on the situation. And I'm sure that, that contact would lead into additional contacts.
Mhm.
I would suspect that many, obviously anyone that's coming to City Park to play tennis is playing recreationally. So we do not use City Park for competitive play. So from that perspective, lines being a distraction, I'm not sure how valid that is other than just being a nuisance to a tennis player. Simply because people are usually just coming for the exercise and the social aspects of playing a game of tennis. So.
Mhm. Okay.
I appreciate your comment, Aaron, to get some perspective. We've obviously invited members of our pickleball community, into our meeting to have an opportunity to really help us understand how we might, find ways to work around some of these issues like the faint lines. I think that's a wonderful suggestion. The other thing to consider as we're thinking about this is just the volume of people that would then be brought into our downtown. So right now, obviously, things are a little bit light in terms of options and opportunities for those people after they're done with pickleball. But the idea that it could also bring additional people into our businesses and things like that before and afterwards, and introduce them more to our community, people who perhaps aren't normally in the city of Westminster. I think it opens up other opportunities, and I think to think on a bigger scale than just pickleball and tennis, and other opportunities that we might be able to bring for future recreation events or activities with with pickleball and with this group even. To be able to tie in, I think there's some really neat things that could happen there. So other things to consider. But it sounds like we're still a little bit torn on the idea.
I just want to say this. This is the fastest growing sport in America, hands down, by any other sports. And it's the tip of the iceberg right now for us. We're still organically growing this. The amount of folks that could be around playing this, bringing people into the city is kind of endless. To be cliche, you build it and they will come. Once it gets out there, you'll see volume just growing with this, hands down.
And it seems to be a multi-generational sport. I think that's one of the other things that's really exciting about pickleball is that you have people of all ages who are, coming in and being a part of this. My question to you, Larry and John, in an effort to see if we can get somewhere tonight with this, would the option of starting with one court as the double court be of interest, or is that still not enough for you all to be able to play? If we left one court as a tennis court, but then took one of, the third court, we'll say, and lined it with the two courts as you had suggested for one of the options, is that something that would get you somewhere, or is that still not enough for what you're intending to do?
Technically it's not. Go ahead, Larry, you can go first. Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
Yeah, based on the volume, it's probably not enough, but it is a start. We can have a staged in approach. We paint the first court, when you walk in, with 2 pickleball courts, and we see how the volume grows with that. And then, we can come back and circle back and say, we can only accommodate X folks, and we have X more that could have played. And then we can just go by that. But if we use the faint line theory, which is USTA approved, my vote is to paint both of them, but that's just my perspective.
I'm kind of, if even when Aaron was looking, I think it was Aaron that was looking over the courts and he could hardly see the lines, the faint lines. I don't see why we just can't paint them.
Madam Chair.
I think it's a great, I think it's a great option to go forward with it, in my opinion. I don't know if everyone else is to that point or not. I heard about this, they brought it to our attention again at Wakefield. And so we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about it. And I've looked into different communities and how different areas are lined, and even talked to friends in other communities. And there are a number of places where, all of the courts are lined. I don't know about, the issues they're having with that, but it seems to be happening. And, I've seen how pickleball has grown in a number of different areas, even in communities I work in specifically. So would love to get this to a point where we can perhaps make a motion if everybody feels comfortable with that. And if not, let's talk about what we need to do to get to that point, whether that's bringing it to the next meeting or where we stand there.
I'd feel differently if we were having tournaments or like tennis tournaments and we were having some major tennis games out there. But I think all of it is going to be used for community, and I don't see why the lighter lines would not be effective for everyone. I think that's just kind of sounds like I'm not a tennis player. Sounds like it's kind of like an underwritten kind of idea and rule. The light lines are for pickleball, the darker lines are for tennis players. That's just my opinion, and to go with it, and I'll make the motion, but I can't make the motion. I'm a council member, can't make the motion. Sorry about that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Dayhoff.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone make a motion. I'd like to go forward with this. I think it's a win-win for the city. And I'd like to go ahead and bring that to the Common Council as quickly as possible, so as to give the street department an opportunity to plan it before spring maintenance responsibilities kick in. So I think it's, you've heard from 2 council members, 2 of the 5. I think it's a win-win for the community, and I'd like for us to move forward with it. And then in the big picture, I totally agree with Mr. Ambrose that we should take a look at some funding, maybe some grant funding for the future, and see if we can't further develop some more pickleball courts in the future. I think it's a good thing.
So would anybody like to make a motion to make this recommendation to the mayor and common council to line the pickleball courts at City Park?
I will make a motion to line the 2 tennis courts at City Park with 3 pickleball courts lined with faint paint to blend into the current pavement.
Mr. Burrows with the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Yang with a second. All in favor? Yes, we're good.
Aye.
All right, it looks like we are good. Mr. Wagman with a negative. So we have a motion and a second to move forward with a recommendation to the mayor and common council to line the pickleball courts at City Park, both pickleball or both tennis courts with 3 total pickleball courts. Sound good? Mr. Wagman, yes. I know he's trying to unmute.
I thought you said they would do both courts, so I voted no. If they would do 1 court and leave the other court unlined, I would say yes. But I think to do all 4 courts with all tennis and pickleball, I would object to that.
I think we'll make sure to note his objection in our minutes. And at this point, thank you, Mr. Wagman. And at this point, we'll move forward. So that recommendation will be made to the mayor and common council. Thank you, Larry and John. We appreciate, Stephen, did you vote? Yes? Yes, I thought so. Okay. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure I didn't miss that. at this point, I think we will move on. We will, do you have any specific updates, Ms. Gruber? I know Celtic Cantor is coming up. We are 15 minutes or so over our hour, but I think it was all a very good conversation that needed to be had. So I appreciate all of you sticking around for a little bit. If there are specific updates that we need to talk about between now and the next meeting that you want to throw out there, that'd be great.
Give a brief recap. We have 559 people registered for the Celtic Cantor with a cap at 600. So we expect to sell out. And the wine stroll sold out in less than a day. We are completely full for that. And our bunny trail activity at Wakefield Valley, scheduled for March 27th. We sold 400 spaces in that out over the weekend, opened up 200 more spaces on Monday morning, and sold out in less than 2 hours for the additional 200 spaces. So people are looking for things to do. We did have some updates from the governor today that has alleviated some of the restrictions. Most don't affect us. However, the ones that do, we are making sure that we are planning accordingly so that we can begin to accommodate more of our public. So that concludes my event updates, unless there are questions.
I have a question there,
Lucy,
Abby.
yes.
So I noticed that there's a box enclosure on the Longwell parking lot. I know
Yes.
we're a month away from wine stroll. Is that going to affect?
I panicked a little bit when I saw that too. That's actually staging for the roadway paving contract, and they should be out of the area by the time the wine stroll rolls around.
Ms. Gruber, the only other question I will ask you, because I know that we talked about it briefly, if you have an update on the Boulder Park over at Tahoma Farms, really quickly to touch on that and maybe an idea of what we can be a part of there with that update.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for the reminder. That was the first thing on my list, and I skipped right over it. I did confirm today with our playground supplier that the equipment is still on schedule to be delivered March 15th. I am waiting to hear back from them when the pre-construction meeting will occur. So I will have a better idea of essentially timeline for installation and availability from the installer, and a completion date for that project once that pre-construction meeting happens. So one of the things that I feel this board could be helpful with is we're not great at telling our story. So we usually do something like this and we hope that people will find this great new park, and we're not really great at advertising the fact that we did something. So I would like to throw it out to this board to see if they would have any interest in basically helping the Recreation and Parks Department with some type of a recognition ribbon cutting ceremony when in fact this park is complete.
I think it's a wonderful idea. Yes, yes. Looks like everyone's giving a thumbs up. So as you have more information, Ms. Gruber, if you can just share that with us to get a better idea of timeline, and we can start to think about that. I think with some of the COVID restrictions, of course, things are changing weekly now. So it might be a little bit different, but if nothing else, I think we could at least get a group out there for a photo op and, a ceremonious ribbon cutting, and, get some press, and, perhaps get it in the newspaper or get some information out, on social media, and really start to spread the word. So, I think there's opportunity for more depending on what our restrictions are with COVID and all those related items, and also obviously timeline and schedule. But I think absolutely a great idea. I think we should celebrate these things in the city and make sure that the community knows what's happening and gets to hear about these exciting new things, and they don't just have to stumble across them. So a lot of work went into this on your part and your staff, from the grant funding to just making it all happen. And obviously the city was very involved with other departments coming in to help remove the old equipment. And I think it's just been a wonderful collaboration across the city to make this happen. So very exciting. And I think it looks like we got a thumbs up from everybody. So we are on board to make it happen. So we'll continue to collaborate on that and just see kind of how things play out. Mr. Zaluski, yes.
Sorry, guys. I remember Abby, you were saying months ago, is there 2 phases to this project?
Yes, currently only phase 1 is funded.
So the pictures that are online, is that total of both phases or is that just phase 1?
No, that is just phase 1 that's
Okay.
represented online.
Yep, sorry.
This is a follow-up to pushing the press on the Boulder Park. What about pushing the press on some of our other parks that people may not like? We could even do that as a follow-up. I know, Abby, you guys have your own Parks and Rec Facebook page and stuff like that, but maybe we could kind of do a, here's Boulder Park, here's the ribbon cutting for this, but then maybe next week, let's go visit another park or another spot or something else that's been updated, or oh, by the way, do you know what's going to be happening at Westminster City Pool in the future? Things like that.
I was going to suggest the exact same thing, and I was going to say that whatever groundwork we lay now can also be spun into the Belgrove event that we're planning for later in the fall. So I think that's laying this groundwork is probably a crucial first step. So I think that's a great suggestion, Abby. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know I've said this to you before, but this is what we're here for. So whenever you think of opportunities, for us to get involved and really make a difference in the work you all are doing and just across the city, I think that's wonderful. So thank you for continuing to look for those opportunities and to call us in when you find those. We really appreciate it. That being said, I know we in the past have said second Tuesday of the month for future events, for future meetings. So that would put us at April 13th officially, if we are saying the second Tuesday. It falls on the 3rd week, but it actually is the second Tuesday. How does that look for everyone?
So one thing I want to bring up is if this playground equipment delivery for Tahoma Farm Boulder Park is on March 15th, and if the construction is started and finishes prior to April 13th, we should probably have some back channel discussions about how to raise awareness of that. So
Absolutely. I think and I think that's what we'll continue to do is have Ms. Gruber just reach out to us, let us know if she has scheduling updates, and then we can formulate a plan for how we'll get together and disseminate that information and continue to be advocates for that work. So does that sound good to you, Ms. Gruber? Do you think we need to have another conversation between now and our next meeting, or?
I don't believe so. I certainly think that I can provide through email a timeline for construction after the pre-construction meeting, which will be sometime next week. So look for an email from me after that, and then we can discuss if we need to maybe have another, if it looks like the completion date will be prior to our April meeting, we can talk about possibly having another interim meeting just to discuss details we want to do to recognize that, or perhaps you can cut a ribbon anytime. The park can be installed and be up and running, and we could do a ribbon cutting in May if we felt that was a better option. So it really just is an awareness exercise for the community and a celebration of this new facility. So once I hear back from the contractor and we understand what type of construction schedule we're looking at, then we can maybe have a discussion over email, whether we have to have another interim meeting or if we simply can just work with our current meeting schedule.
And depending on weather, it might be nice to wait until April anyway, just to be sure we have a mild day. This week looks good, but I don't know about next week and the week after. We'll have to see how that all plays out. So so thank you. And we will look forward to hearing from you when you have more information on what that schedule looks like. I mean, I guess there's potential that it could be a later install once the delivery actually happens. So we'll just wait to hear and see what that looks like. So if April 13th sounds good, then I think we'll go ahead and stick with that second Tuesday date for consistency's sake. And do we have anything else that we missed or any other items that should be brought forth before we adjourn? Nope. Councilman Dayhoff is saying thank you and no on mute.
It
So
was a good
I-
meeting. It was a good meeting. Thank you.
I appreciate all the comments. I know we went a little bit long tonight, but I think all very good conversation. And this is what we need. I think it's great when we have the opportunity to challenge one another and not always agree, because I think we need to have those different perspectives that are brought forth. And it's the only way we can come to, to any kind of recommendation or move forward with the work we're doing with, the different points of view and perspective. So thank you all. I appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you in April, and we'll be chatting between now and then about the Boulder Park. So meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.
It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.